Well, here you are today. Tonight I will be giving a speech not to everyone in the room, but more to you graduates. Just a chance to talk with you wonderful people on this special occasion. It's a very special evening for you all, isn't it? It sure is. Everyone tonight has gathered here tonight to honor your achievements and to celebrate your achievements. Your successes, the hard work, the certificates you've gained, the awards, the diplomas you'll be given. And we're all very proud of you. You, the class of 2010, make me remember my days at the Kansas School for the Deaf. In the year 1958, several years ago. At that time, we didn't have things like pagers and text messaging. We didn't even have computers. But here you are, graduating in this new world with new opportunities and new challenges. These new innovations you have. I recently took a trip to Korea. Does everyone know where Korea is? No? Some of you don't know? Well, I can explain it. You know, here we are in the United States of America, and if you travel a great distance west in an airplane, past Japan and north before you even arrive to China, there is where Korea resides. This is the sign we use. The reason we use a sign like this is because many years ago, Korean people were known for wearing great big hats. So that's where the sign came from. But so I went to Korea and I met many deaf people. I went to visit a school for the deaf in Korea. Talked with different kinds of people. It was interesting. The deaf school was very similar to the Rochester School for the Deaf in that they used sign language. It was a different sign language. But they did use sign. The one thing that they had that I'm sure everyone wished that we had here, instead of having a small little pager that you can text message on, they actually had small little mobile devices you could sign with, just like your video phones you might have at home. Little video phones you can put in your pocket, teeny as your pocket. You can sign right to your friends, right to operators, make calls. Imagine that. Wherever you were in the world, you could have this little piece of technology with you to communicate to anyone in the world. And I think as you go along with your journeys, you're all wishing for a smooth ride, aren't you? But it may not happen that way. The world presents problems and challenges. Just like a time when I graduated from high school, it makes me remember. Off I went to Gallaudet University in the next fall, and really, I was a good student. It was never hard for me to get through secondary school. When I got to Gallaudet, I thought everything would be no problem. And everything was okay, except for one subject that I always had problems with, was geometry. I had such a hard time understanding the facts of geometry, and it would really get me down. I would work and study. I had a very patient teacher who told me that I should go to the library and study myself, and sit alone and practice my geometry in a quiet library, me and my geometry book, me and my pen and pencil. Just study over the mistakes I had made, try to understand how the equations worked, and I would sit in that library for 2 and 3 hours at a time, all by myself. But I could almost feel something happen as I did that. My mind turned on almost as if an electric light bulb. All of a sudden, my heart began to beat faster, and I realized that I had finally understood geometry after all of that practice. And after that hard time, I realized that geometry was another thing that I was able to understand. But the reason I tell you this story of all that hard work that I put in is because here you are sitting on your graduation day, enjoying my remarks. But I want to understand, I want to know if anybody has gotten some insights from that story. What have you learned from what I've just shared with you about my hard time with geometry? Exactly. You will come ahead with problems. You will face problems, and you have to be brave. Face them with bravery and perseverance. You'll have struggles, but you can turn them into success if you continue. There's a popular saying, if at first you don't succeed, try again. Say it with me. Will everyone sign it with me in the graduating class? If at first you don't succeed, try again. Come, everyone, sign that together. If at first you don't succeed, try again. You will succeed if you do this. Of course, I was very happy that I had gotten over my hard times with geometry. And I became fairly successful. Like Dr. Mao mentioned. And maybe you think here tonight, looking at me on the stage, that I've never had any problems. But that's not true. I'm just like everyone else. I'm human, and I've come across many problems in my life. But I don't look at problems as a bad thing. I look at them as something that's helped me work on my life and helped me become a stronger person. If you look at any history book, you'll see people throughout the ages who use their challenges and struggles to make more successes for themselves. I'll tell you two different situations. Two different things you'll find in our history books. Does everyone know who Babe Ruth is? You probably know who he is, right? There's someone who don't know. Okay. Well, I can explain. The other person I'd like to touch on is Thomas Alva Edison. Some of you don't recognize him either. Okay, well, I'll explain who everyone is. But let's start first with Babe Ruth. He's a very famous baseball player. He was a very famous baseball player. From about 1914 to about 1935, the height of his career, and people all over knew Babe Ruth as the prime baseball player. He was famous for the amount of home runs he had. Audiences come from far and wide just to see Babe Ruth play. In the year 1927 alone, just one baseball season, Babe Ruth had 60 home runs. Clearly breaking records throughout history. He played baseball for 21 years, from 1914 to 1935. And during that career, he had 714 home runs by the time he retired. Unbelievable. But something that people often overlook is the fact that he did strike out. Babe Ruth most certainly did. In those few years, he struck out 1,330 times during that major league career. That's a lot of times to get struck out. But people were looking at his home runs. People would never criticize Babe Ruth because of his accomplishments. And even though he struck out, that never stopped him from trying to make the next home run. Babe Ruth is in our history books as a very successful person, but we can't forget that he